Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Peter Jennings. I go by CSURAM88 across the daily fantasy industry, and I'm back again doing a model preview for the St. Jude Classic. Obviously, we have the U.S. Open coming up in a week, which I'm ecstatic for, but we do have this tournament. A lot of interesting things going on. This isn't the strongest field. Last year, Dustin Johnson withdrew after 9 holes. It's a tough course to kind of figure out what types of players to take. So I'm excited for the tournament. I think it's all about finding these guys that are just better than their price. And that's something that I really am starting to think about more when I'm making my rosters is just how should these guys be priced? What's a fair price for players? And trying to identify guys that might be the most mispriced. So let's look at the way I set up the model here, and it's a pretty simple model this week. Weights 2 stats in particular very high, which actually leads to one of the highest plus minuses, or plus minus stats, because it backtests well, these 2 stats, and they're a big part of my model every week, but they're even bigger this week. So I have long-term adjusted round at 37, which is very high for me. Long-term green regulation at 3, which is also something I don't always do, but I did do it this week, so I think green reg is probably the best stat to look at in general. I have long-term birdie score at 5, and this is higher than I've done in the past. And one thing I am doing is just looking at how often these guys make birdies and birdie averages of players. So I think it's obviously really important on DraftKings. It's something I've always done, but I'm really trying to get better at understanding the guys who have the highest expectation for birdie, factoring in the likelihood to make the cut as well. So that's something that I'm trying to incorporate more, and I think a slider there helps this model. I have recent green regulation score at 35, recent driving distance at 5, just because the par 4s are so long. I wanted just a hint of driving distance in here. You still have to be accurate than it is a par 70, but I do want the bombers in here as well. And I did the course adjusted round at 15 points. I think I'm going to go off, I think that's a fair, pretty standard, pretty average course history score here. And I've looked specifically at some of the course history with these guys as well. So the results, all the studs at the top, Dustin Johnson being the highest rated player by far. I talked about in the podcast. I think he's a fantastic play. He's head and shoulders above everyone else in terms of talent in this field. Obviously, I know there's some guys who are good players. Mickelson, Koepka, obviously good players. Woodland's been playing well. Palmer can always get it done. You have Harris English, who is definitely not in the class of the first couple guys I mentioned. But there's some golfers who are talented. But Dustin Johnson's clearly the class of this field. I mean, you look at his game log here, and he's just been incredible. He's not missing cuts. You could argue he's one of the best golfers in the world. He just hasn't been able to close. So we'll see what happens, but I think he's a great play. Just all about roster construction, and really, I don't need to explain Dustin Johnson too much, just because it's going to come down to how much you like the guys that are below 7,000, below 6,000 even, if you want to go that way to fit Dustin Johnson in. So I like Mickelson, Koepka. I don't know where I'll be leading in terms of building most of my cash game teams and tournaments. I definitely think I'm going to have a lot of DJ in the higher stakes, and I'll probably fade him more in the lower stakes buy-ins. So I'll have a lot of equity on him, but I think he'll just be too heavily owned in the low buy-in, high, first place, top-heavy structures to take. Nost I like a decent amount. I just have a bias towards him, I guess, at this point. I think he's a funny guy, and he's been known to risk jelly beans on everything he does around the golf course, which, of course, I admire. Golf is a big part of this for me. I think more so than any DFS sport is golf provides a tremendous amount of just straight entertainment for me. I really enjoy watching these guys as a golfer myself now. It's just something that I really enjoy. So it's nice to have guys that you can root for, and I think in a certain spot like this, where Nost is overpriced relative to where he has been, certainly you won't see him at 9,700, but the field is so weak that it still is somewhat enticing. So I like him. I'll definitely have him in tournaments. Guys who stand out that are actually going to be applicable to helping you guys. Swafford, Colin talked about a lot on the pod. I really like him. I think I'll have a good amount of him in this spot. I think he's a great play. I think he's just too cheap, and I think you'll see him be somewhat of a popular. We'll see how popular it is, because there's another guy I like at the same price who I think will be more popular, Will Wilcox, who I'll talk about in a second. But Swafford, I think, is a really nice play and someone I'll be on. Boo Weekly, I'm not loving, to be honest. He's kind of popping in this model, but I'm not sure how much I'm going to have of him. Boo Weekly, just there's just that last. I played him at the Dean and DeLuca too, so maybe that's sticking with me. But there's some missed cuts in here. These 3 missed cuts here, and I just elite finishes outside of the Phoenix Open. I think he's a little overpriced relative to his production. I know some of the stats are good, which is why he's rating fine here, but I'm probably off Boo Weekly. Harris English, Francisco Molinari, Charles Howell III. Then I wanted to talk about Will Wilcox, who I really like in this spot. We talked a little bit about how he does well in these tournaments or weaker fields, and Colin and I are going to look into that a little bit more. So that's something I've heard other people in the industry say, that you take these guys in weaker fields, and Will Wilcox certainly has that rep. So I like him a lot here. He's obviously a DFS favorite, kind of what I talked about before. Absolutely love taking Will Wilcox and rooting for him. That hole-in-one he had at the Players was just legendary. So he's a guy that I definitely think I'll have some exposure to, potentially in cash as well. Molinari is another play that Colin really likes. I like him as well, but he doesn't make as many birdies, and that's one thing to be cognizant of with Molinari. I don't know how much I love his upside. Just taking a look at here, I mean, he has some decent finishes, but when you look at his points and stuff, he's just not crushing it as high as other guys because he doesn't make as many birdies. Chad Campbell, really like him so far. If you want to follow Colin, he's really high in Johnson Wagner, who I don't mind. Harold Varner III played well last week. I think he's a really intriguing play. Stuart Sink up here is someone that Colin talked about as well, who I think is interesting. And then I also really like Camilo Villegas, pronunciation's terrible here, guys. I hope you're laughing at me right now. Camilo Villegas, I hope that's right. I've watched him play many times on TV, but I just for some reason can't get that right. But I do like him in this spot. So hope this is helpful for you guys. It's going to be a really fun tournament. Obviously, it's nice to get the salaries here soon for the U.S. Open. We know a lot of the guys. I think we know everyone now basically who's going to be there, and it's just a great time of year for golf. The NBA Finals are winding down. We're in the middle of baseball season, and certainly we have a ton of exciting golf, which is probably my favorite thing in the summer right now, at least in terms of sports. So hope this model helps you guys. One thing I always tell everyone is to make multiple models on Labs, especially week to week, just to see who's consistently popping. I've made maybe 20 models already this week, just trying to figure out where to go, because it is a tricky course fit, and it's also just a weaker field. So it's a little bit tougher to kind of focus in on who you really want to take, and you definitely have to be willing. I mean, you just have no choice. You have to take some guys that you might not be as confident in your cash game lineups just because of the weakness of the field. But should be a lot of fun. Again, good luck. Hope to see more of you guys at the top of the leaderboard.